Welcome back to Real Talk with Susan Stone and Kristina Supler. We are full-time moms and attorneys bringing our student defense legal practice to life with real, candid conversations. Today's podcast is going to discuss the value of using a parenting coach. And Kristina, wouldn't you agree that we deal with parenting issues every day?
Oh, in so many different ways, whether we're working on a campus Title IX case, special education, student discipline, there's issues in our practice that really lend themselves to parent coaching.
Well, and our clients often look to us to help guide them as to what decision to make, so much so that in 2021, both of us became certified in positive discipline, which we've had a podcast on, what is positive discipline and how you can incorporate those thoughts into everyday parenting.
We also, though, at times sort of really believe in the importance of using a tough love approach. And it really just sort of depends on the context in which we're representing a student and working with families. But we really think it's important to work with all sorts of different outside professionals to support students and their families through crisis.
Yeah, and we've made a lot of referrals to outside therapists and coaches. And today we're lucky to have a great coach online. So why don't you kick off and introduce our guest today?
Today we are pleased to be joined by Meghan Leahy. Hi, Meghan.
Hi, Meghan.
Hello, how are you?
Great. Meghan is a former teacher and school counselor who now owns her own business as a certified parenting coach. She has a master's degree in school counseling from Johns Hopkins University. She's a weekly columnist in the On Parenting section of the Washington Post, and she's also a published author. Her book is titled Parenting Outside the Lines, Forget the Rules, Tap into Your Wisdom, and Connect with Your Child. And most importantly, Meghan's a mother to 3, and she brings her real-world experience and relatable insights to her work. So thanks for joining us, Meghan.
This is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to kick off with a very basic softball question. What is a parenting coach?
Yeah, it's kind of a BSy job, it feels like. I essentially help the same problems I feel like I create. So
What do you mean?
100 years ago, not even that long ago, you didn't need a parent coach. You had a community, a church, a synagogue,
A village.
A village. And everybody was like-minded, rightly or wrongly. If everybody was whooping their kids, at least you had that in common.
I was whooped. My parents will deny it. Just so you know, I got the belt.
Yeah, I got all kinds of. And so we had our family around. And it was a true generational passing down of your ancestry, your lineage, how you parented. Good or bad, right? So I'm not going to paint a picture that it was great. A lot of bad stuff was passed down. And then as Industrial Revolution moved away from each other and away from community, we have become increasingly, so we had an up-down opposite thing. We became obsessed with our kids because we had fewer of them. Right. And we used to have a lot of kids to work the farm because you'd lose some in a bad winter. Do you know what I mean? And women couldn't stop having them. So thank God for the pill. And then as women could have less kids and we got more obsessed with them. So the obsession went higher and the support went lower. As religion fell away and as psychology came up, we started to realize that we were sending our kids to therapy when the identified patient should have been the parent. So the kids weren't the problem, the parents were. And when I say problem, I put that in air quotes. They just need support. They just need somebody to tell them they're doing a good job. And here's what else we can do. And here's what is typical child development for this age. They just need support. So that's what I do. That's what I try and do. Support them.
Meghan, have parents gotten too soft today? I mean, it's interesting that your initial response sort of looked back in history. In today's time, I mean, I just wonder about this issue of soft parenting, because I know when I was growing up and being raised, my parents were very strict with rules, boundaries, consequences, good or
Yeah.
bad. I mean, Susan, it sounds like you had some of that as well.
Well, I did, but I know that I know Kristina's parents, and I would say they were very effective old school parenting with you, correct?
Absolutely.
Shout out to Jim and Dolores. Can we give you a shout out?
My wonderful parents. It just seems today, as we're dealing with families in crisis and in various contexts, because of course we're lawyers, so generally when people are with us, it's because they're at a low point in their life. Often it feels as though parents are reluctant to impose rules. What are your thoughts on that, Meghan?
Yeah. So what you see in society is bing-bonging from one extreme to another. So if we were in a seen, not heard, kids were at the very bottom of the totem pole. We came out of an agricultural kind of, remember, humans have been around a long time. We think we're important. We are not. We are a speck of sand in this universe and even in the longevity of humans. Here we go now. You're asking me, have parents gone soft? So they were too harsh, right? Not in every culture, but let's just take typical American culture. Right? And harsh for no reason, right?
Right.
And controlling for no reason. But kids were also given a little bit more freedom to go outside, to go into woods, right? Now we fast forward and we didn't like how we were raised, a lot of us. So we swing too much into the other extreme.
Sure.
So back in the day, if you went to those, if you were little and you kicked your parents in the shins, right, you got spanked, you got sent to your room, you got yelled at, you got harshly reprimanded.
If you said,
right?
no, I won't do that, you were
Correct.
in trouble.
Harshly reprimanded, right?
Oh, I got soap in the mouth when I used the F word as a little girl. I still remember that.
Me too.
I was a mouthy kid and the soap in the mouth.
You want to trauma bond over it? We can.
The funny thing is, I don't look back on it as being traumatic. I think it was what you did when you had a mouthy kid. And I was.
Back then.
Yeah.
Back then. So what we have now is that people don't want to be raised how they were raised. And so then they go into when the kid kicks them in the shins, they're like, please don't kick mommy. That makes me feel sad, right? There is a lack of boundaries and the kid doesn't respond well to that either. So if you look at it as a fence around a house, if the fence is too tight around the house, that leads to disobedience, power struggles, rebellion or shame, right? If the fence goes too wide away from the house, the kids don't know where the boundaries are, the natural hierarchy is not in order, and the kids don't feel safe. So as humans, we feel safe when we know where the rules are. Now, what I see a lot is people saying, well, I was raised like this and I'm fine. Great. Somehow, right, like somebody's temperament with how their parents were, with their birth order, that alchemy.
First children, right? Those first
children are a hot mess. They are anxious, they are ill, they are perfectionistic, they are highly medicated and very successful.
Yes, I would agree.
And, they look great, but go live with them. Okay, I'm a firstborn married to a firstborn. We're a friggin' nightmare.
I love your analogy about the fence around the house, though.
I love it.
That's really good.
And why this is good is that different kids need different fences, even within the same house.
Sure.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. You know what? We were just, I was just talking, I have a junior. It's time to really kick it in for college. And that's a really real consequence, right? I'm not imposing it, saying, kick it in. You need to really finish your junior year with great grades and great scores. Or
you might not go to the schools you want to go to.
That's not me imposing the rule. That's the world.
So in what I do in my parent coaching is I find the middle way.
Give us the middle way under that fact pattern, okay? Let's talk about grades and scores.
Okay, so let's say you have a kid, junior year, has spent the last 2.5 years in some kind of BS COVID situation.
Sure. Yep.
With
Okay.
you.
They have lost social skills,
Mhm.
skills within the classroom, confidence building skills, as well as important learning skills. English and math are the lowest they have ever been since they have started testing in the 60s.
A bunch of news articles have come out recently highlighting that, and it's
In the New,
It's
it was in
very
the New York
sad.
Times, and
now-
I heard SAT scores and ACT scores are down by 5 points, which is a lot.
So now we come in hot as parents.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're bringing our old expectations to a new way of life. So the old way is, I'm going to sit you down. You're going to do this work. You're going to apply to these schools. You're going to write these essays. You're going to get this resume. Do. One way. The opposite is, well, snooze, you lose. You don't do it, you're F. Okay. The middle way is, hey, Brian, things have been a little wacky. We are like out of the habit of maybe some organizational skills. What's important to you this year when you look ahead? They may look at you and be like, blink, blink. What do you mean? Well, let's look ahead, right? Let's look ahead. And so you start at the beginning. That is the middle way of where are we now? Where can we go given what your kid is experiencing? So natural consequences for kids who are suffering only cause more suffering. So if you or have a broken leg and you're at the bottom of the stairs and I scream at you, get up the stairs. Well, the consequences are you don't get up the stairs. Who would ever do that to another human?
No, but it is a real consequence. So I want to challenge you on this, okay? Are you up
Sure.
for the challenge? Christina and I
All day?
work, all day. Christina and I work with kids who are accused of various misconducts at college or younger.
In college.
In college. It
Okay.
could be sexual assault. It could be cheating. And some of our cases, they're at real risk of getting indicted. Let's say a hazing case, okay?
And we
Yeah.
have cases in the criminal justice system. So
Yeah.
So it is cruel to say, get your act together, or you could get kicked out of school or get charged. But guess what? Those are the facts, Jack, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So I can't, as a lawyer, and Christina's a lawyer, I can't soften that. That is the real world facing you, babe. So what
Yeah.
do you do when you have opportunities like get your grades up, get your scores up, live right? Yes, you won't get up to the top of that stair. So give us a mid-level approach that's kinder, but real world based.
how do you coach under those circumstances?
Yeah. So I really love the Ross Green approach, Greene. This is a collaborative problem solving approach, which takes both needs of both parties into equal weight. Okay. So for instance, the parents are saying, okay, this kid has C's, but you want to go to UNC. And the kid is saying, well, I don't really care. Right. You meet in the middle with Ross Greene's approach, where you start to work on small problem solving, small amounts of problem solving. Because for the average adolescent, now listen, when they're 18 and they've hazed someone, like what's going to happen is going to happen, right? My work is when people call me for the 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old. If we can work with them there, you are less likely to have a kid who is going to sexually assault while drunk, haze somebody while drunk, right? Like make these decisions with lifelong impact. So my interest is problem solving in the middle way. It is easier in the moment to say sink or swim. It's easier. It's easier for the parent. It's easier to go like this. But for instance, I had a parent family who the kid stopped attending school. A lot of school refusal.
We've
right now.
dealt with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually running away from home, we've dealt with that too.
Yeah. And so we're going to send them away to this wilderness camp.
Oh my gosh, we deal with
Wilderness
that.
school, yeah.
Yep.
So I said, okay, so your kid's going to wake up, be grabbed by strangers and taken to Utah. Do you want to destroy your relationship with them forever? My questions are they addicted to drugs? Are they a danger to themselves? Are they a danger to anyone in the house? No, no, no. Oh, okay. So you want to rip them away from the family when they're already struggling? Oh, well, I guess. Okay. So the middle way became, how do we make small movements toward? So rather than the answer is go to school or not go to school, it's what does online school look like? 1 hour a day. Then it's 2 hours a day.
It's that mid-level approach.
Well, I hear your point, and I think it's an excellent one that there's got to be buy-in from both sides. Otherwise, you're not going to make any progress.
Wait, my goal in my human life while I'm here is to not crush souls. Right? So by the time they get to you guys and they're looking at jail time, that's soul crushing on the side.
Yeah, it really
That's
is.
That's a life ender for a lot of these kids.
Yeah.
That's now their invitation into not being able to have a good career, not being surrounded by the right people, not being right. So my job on the front end is for that child to look at the parents and the parents' eyes say to them, I love you. I am here for you. I'm not giving up on you ever.
Ever.
And we have goals. Every day we have goals. Whether your kid is eating disordered, cutting themselves, in dangerous behaviors, not doing homework. For me, always having an adult in that children's life that says, I'm never going to give up on you. Ever.
That's beautiful. And it builds or can help build a sense of security. And again, bring the fence maybe really wide back in a little bit to tie back to your initial point.
The only way a human has moved forward besides the military is through connection.
Mm-hmm.
Humans do not move forward with carrots and sticks. Now, if we take on parenting as the beatings will continue until morale improves, you will get the behavior you want, but you will not get a relationship you want.
That's right.
Lighten it up a little bit.
Oh, gosh. I knew that.
We got heavy, we got a little dark, but really, really important and valuable insights. So thank you for sharing that.
And thank you for trying to lighten it up already. I was like going, oh my God, I haven't had my lunch and not enough coffee.
Let's talk about parenting outside the lines. So your book it's funny, it's informative, it's full of really practical advice. For our listeners out there, share a little bit of your humor with our parents. Share a little bit about the book that you think parents should know about so they go check it out.
I tell a lot of my own stories with my own kids, which is its own show, and me growing up. This is a parenting book where I just want somebody to read it and go, oh, I don't feel as bad. It's not lofty. I don't want you to put it down and go, oh my God, I'm a changed person. Because I haven't really ever seen that happen, right? It's like reading books about stomach crunches. Nobody gets out of bed and does them, right? I want somebody to just read the book and go, oh, right. So for instance, when I open the book, I just go through all of the different parenting styles, helicopter parenting, snowplow parenting, all the different iterations, right? And people will recognize themselves in those. And I say, it's okay. If it works. I'm trying to kind of lift the burden of parenting one way.
Right?
Right?
I was thinking about humor, and Kristina and I have a really heavy practice. We deal with serious issues, and what gets
the Me Too sign.
Yeah, no, it's every day is challenging, and I know that what gets me through the day is the fact that I just have to say this. My law partner, Kristina Supler, is hilarious.
Well, thank you.
Isn't that amazing?
I know. And, a lot of people don't get that side of her because she is such a consummate professional. But really, that's what gets us through the day is
you
that
have to laugh.
You have to laugh.
Well, one of the things when I coach with people and in the book, I would be getting a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old out of the house by myself. My husband went to work at 5 a.m. Everybody was screaming and in some sort of undress, right? Like never fully dressed. I'm supposed to be the parent coach on my block, right? So I'm in a full flop sweat and we're late and we get in the car and I click everyone in and I'm like, we made it. We're in the car. We've won the day.
Victory.
And all the kids are like, what?
Okay, whatever, Mom, drive.
Right. This is winning. I'm like, oh, this is winning. Right.
One of the things that I want to share on a personal level of what winning is, and my number 2, they always say that number 1 are rule followers, and then number 2 always likes to break the rules. And 3 rules, what are they? I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Yeah.
But I was just talking to my 23-year-old and seeing the adult come out, like that is the payback, But
Yeah.
sometimes
You wondered if you'd ever get there.
I didn't think I'd ever get there. And he is amazing, really. And
It's so gratifying.
It really is gratifying. Yeah.
And I think part of the hard part for all of us is that you're parenting for the long game, right? It's hard to explain to parents sometimes that the small gestures they're making right now manifest years down the road. So one of the major things that I teach parents is the family meeting. It's just really getting together and talking, right? And it has rules around it. And it sounds so dumb with a 3-year-old, right? Like, what is your rose and thorn? What did you love about
we do that in my
today?
house.
Right. But eventually, what it's turned into, at least in my family, is, well, let's sit down. Mom, there's a boy being bullied in my class. And if I speak up, I'm bullied too. Okay. But what do we do about this? Right?
It's
Like
a beautiful sort of invitation for the kids to speak about whatever's on their mind.
And so the parents, though, have to create that because in our culture today, there's not time. We just pick up our kids and bring them to A and bring them to B and drop them off at A and then take them to soccer and then to we actually have to consciously create that time.
You know what I
be
say?
contained.
The goal in life is that we spend a couple years diapering our kids, and if we do it right, they'll want to diaper us one day when we can't make it to the bathroom. And all of us who've been through menopause, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, geez.
As I sweat right now. But, talking about like your son being an adult and being so proud of him, right? That is the result of a lot of what you didn't do. But it has nothing to do with you in many ways, which is the mind of parenting. Like sperm met egg, and there he was. All his potentiality, all his IQ, height, goodness, everything, right? And then we are the gardeners, right? We make sure that he can fully grow up. So we are both in helping him and getting out of the way.
Yeah, I like that, the gardener, because sometimes you need to add water and sometimes you need to pinch something up. I mean, that's a good metaphor since your husband, that's his biz, right?
It is,
Working with
is.
plants.
Well, so let me ask you, Megan, we're talking about when our children grow. What's your advice for parents of older kids, say late teens, college? Is it ever too late to change things, to sort of rewire how you communicate with your children and your family dynamic?
Even if you screwed it up badly?
No, it's never too late. It's never too late. And they used to think it was, and now neuroscientists know it's not. And also we can't blow smoke. It's hard. When a parent has realized they have misstepped and they have done the work to see that, and they are ready to apologize and humble themselves, that does not automatically click the dominoes into forgiveness and changing of behavior in the child. So if you have an older teen that you have bossed around since they were born or shamed, or manipulated and you see the light and you get help, you have to kind of see it as like, that's how far off I-95 you drove, maybe for 18 years. So to get back to I-95 is going to be that journey too.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be a cultivation of patience and persistence, because humans, when I tell you, oh, I've changed. Oh, that's nice. Prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it. But one of the most important things to know about kids of all ages, including us, is that we are always hungry for a relationship with our parent.
It never
Absolutely.
ends.
Oh.
It never ends. And our family. I mean, I was on the phone
Yes.
last night with my 99-year-old aunt, and I check in once a week or so with her. And
Right.
she's very meaningful in my life.
And that should give people a lot of hope that even if there's an apology to make and something to make right as a parent, that deep desire to be connected to your family never goes away. Never goes away.
It's interesting, Meghan. As I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking, and it's sort of, please correct me if I'm wrong, but a theme throughout your work is this idea of vulnerability. You're vulnerable in sort of putting your family's own stuff out there. You know, some days you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. And what we just talked about, the analogy of having the car off the highway and turning it around. And really at the heart of that is parents admitting to their own children, look, I made a mistake. I screwed up. Let's regroup. It's okay to do that. And that's a means of forming connection.
Oh, one of the biggest, right? In therapy, they call it rupture repair. It's like the basis of a human relationship. In my book, I have a chapter on apologizing, right? And it's, what's a good apology, what isn't, how it works, how it doesn't, because everyone thinks connection looks like going to the zoo or going to the park or all these things, right? The obvious thing. But connection, humility, vulnerability, and you can absolutely apologize while keeping all of your parental power.
I do want to go back and circle to the village idea, because it's not just on parents. I think we have to all do our part for playing a role in children that are not our own, that might be our friends' kids. When I grew up, my mother she passed her best friend from 7th grade cooking class. And I considered her like an aunt, Aunt Eileen. And Aunt Eileen would remember me and buy me. I remember this. I wanted desperately a Bonnie Bell lip smacker, and I got that from Aunt Eileen.
They were amazing.
They were amazing. And I was thinking today that Kristina came into the office with York peppermint patties from her son, James. I mean, I just...
Trick-or-treating leftovers. Amazing.
Yep. And I think that we've become so insular, especially with COVID, that we forget that we are a community and we can form relationships with children not our own. And that can be deep and meaningful for kids.
The science is very clear that as soon as a baby is born, whoever picks up that baby is the parent, because mothers die during childbirth all the time, not to be dark. But there's a big kind of culture of like mother love and the specialness. Biologically, that's not it. Okay. Biologically, we can connect to anyone in those early days of life who loves us. Right. And that continues and continues throughout our life. And the power of showing up for your community, though, I just want to be very clear for everyone listening. You're not crazy if it's hard. All our culture makes it hard. We are both in suburban homes where the garage door shuts, and we're on this. So you have to decide to reach out. You have to decide to go out on your front yard and invite the neighbors over. You have to decide to do what you want to do. It's not as organic as it used to be, even maybe when we were growing up, right? Where the kids were here or there and you knew the neighbor and the neighbor knew and your family and your cousins were. it's harder for families.
I hear sometimes people talk about how, back in the day, the good old days, kids would just walk around the neighborhood and pop in and out of everyone's house here, there, and everywhere. And parents often didn't even know where their kids are versus now where it's a structured schedule and you schedule play dates, in 30-minute increments, weeks out. And, it's sort of this discussion of why can't we go back to the good old days? And I think it's something that, as you point out, it's important to be really mindful of the ways to build connection, both intentionally, but also perhaps organically.
And remember, when you're running the carpools, when you're standing on the sidelines at the soccer tournament, in the gymnastics thing, these are micro ways to create connection.
Mm-hmm.
These are little teeny ways to tell the kids, get off your phones, tell me what's going on, right? To pick up a headline, to turn to the parent. I mean, like, how have you guys been? Like, because we're not going to return to everyone running around. And frankly, the good old days were not great in a lot of ways. But we can stop and do little micro connections. Even sending another parent an email like, I saw your son on the field today and he picked up the opposing team's player, like by the arm after he knocked him down. What a great kid.
Absolutely. And I think so often we're looking for these really formalized opportunities to build connection, and it doesn't have to be that.
And you want to form those connections so kids feel responsible, that, not to get all religious on anybody, whatever faith, but am I my brother's keeper? Are we responsible for one of an, that's a universal spiritual concept, is that we live, we're social, we care about each other. And this is such a divisive time that I think connecting on a human level is important. I think when you have that foundation, you want to do well.
Yeah. And I really love what you say there, because what you're talking about is transmitting values. And there's a couple different ways to do it. One is modeling it. One is saying it. Every parent can say, what's my wheelhouse? What am I good at? And how can I do connections there? Right? Like, maybe you're just good at the grocery store connections, but let your kids see it and tell them why it matters.
There's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
No.
Correct. Maybe you are the organizer parent. Maybe you are the block party parent. Enjoy that. Find what your thing is, and also the different seasonality of our lives. So I have a bunch of tweens and teens. I just sent one to college. I'm actually super tired right now. The only thing I can focus on is I've decided to get to know the parents of my youngest kid. That is my focus for this year. Everything else I'm not doing.
That's okay.
Right.
And saying no can be freeing.
Yes. And so look at, what do I have the energy for? How old are my kids? What is my work-life balance? What is real for me right now?
It's funny. I was thinking about this energy thing. That's a real thing. Kristina and I were just on a business trip together, and
it was grueling.
And of course, she has younger kids, so she had to go trick-or-treating. Wanted to. But I had to get in my jammies and crawl in bed.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
And paying attention to it is a gift to the world. Right. Because especially women, we have the invisible labor constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Constant invisible labor.
Yes.
Schedule keeper, schlepper to the doctor, caretaker of the dog, making sure there's milk. Constant email, watching. And that's not even our work.
No.
Right. Getting into bed and resting is a gift. Because I say a lot to parents when I coach, it's not very sexy, but one of the big things we work on is doing no harm. How can you do no harm?
Mm-hmm.
How can you not do damage to your spouse, to your kids?
How about this? We so often want to put on social media this picture of us smiling and at this social event or that social event, but maybe it's when the phone is off, the doors are closed. Are we treating the people in our home like the best?
Right.
And doing
No.
it when no one's looking.
No, not usually. Here's what's funny too, is that we come home from work or get offline and go down and we're like this and we're dead and we don't have a lot left and now there's dinner and, a night ahead of you, right? And we're not our best selves. Our kids are the same.
They are.
And we call it misbehavior.
Yeah.
We blame them when their cups are empty. Why are you rude? Who do you think you are? Why are you sassy? Why don't you want to sit down and do that stupid math worksheet? Which let's face it, is stupid. What's wrong with, why are you, right? We're not any better.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking your comment about the goal of doing no harm and how some people might respond, well, gee, isn't that a low bar? Do no harm?
Yes.
Come on, because we're such
low bar.
a high achieving drive society. But I think that it's actually really accurate. And I like your points about parents thinking about how they feel when they come home from work. Kids feel the same way, but we label it with a negative, we put a negative label on it.
I'm a big believer in saying to a kid, what would be your good transition activity? For my oldest, she loved TV. Or is it getting into a hot shower? How can you, I know when I get home, the first thing I like to do is get out of my work clothes and put on my jammies.
I'm the same way. Well, my husband doesn't get it. He's like,
oh my God,
put your pajamas on at like 6:30? I'm like, yes.
Oh, free the girls. Free the girls. Well,
I mean, yeah, people come into the house and my bra is sitting on the couch. And of course, I'm at an age where I'm like, whatever.
I'm with you. Anyways, this has been
a real treat.
Really fun. I feel like if you were in Cleveland, you'd be our girlfriend.
Yeah, we'd say, let's go get wine. Thank you so much for joining us.
One of my favorite cousins moved out to Ohio, and her husband works at the Cleveland Clinic, and so does she. And I will say it's been like a culture shock for her a little bit, but her son is at a high school. She says she's never met so many lovely, lovely people.
Well, hopefully this is the beginning for us as a new friendship.
Yes. Meghan Leahy, thank you so much for joining us today. And to our listeners, check out her book and her other work on columns. And she's all over the internet. So thank you.
Yeah. And check out
Thank you guys for all the hard work you're doing on this other end of the hard behaviors. It's rough. So definitely keep your spirits up as it gets darker.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Real Talk with Susan and Kristina. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And leave us a review so other people can find the content we share here. You can follow us on Instagram. Just search our handle @StoneSupler. And for more resources, visit us online at studentdefense.kjk.com. Thank you so much for being a part of our Real Talk community. We'll see you next time.